OMAD stands for 1 meal a day. It is a way of doing intermittent fasting that involves condensing your daily calories down to a 1 hour eating window. It has been exploding as far as popularity because people are claiming its benefits for weight loss and how good they feel. But is OMAD safe? And if it is, what do you eat? Do calories matter? Do carbs matter? We are going to go over in this video what we have learned from the limited research on this topic so that you can make a good decision for yourself. All right, so first of all, we'll start with the fact that you practice OMAD fairly often.
I do. This is something I've done quite often over the last 3 years. Once or twice a week, I will do OMAD.
Yeah, so we'll check in with Keith and see how you handle things as we go through. But let's start with what is written about OMAD out there in the research.
Not much.
Right. Yeah.
Look at
So
Google.
if I start looking for research, where I usually will start is Google Scholar, and I put in OMAD and 1 meal a day, and nothing came up. In fact, the only research that I found that mentioned 1 meal a day came through a review study that had just glanced about it. And there was just 2 studies, and these studies were from back in 2007.
Right. And so these studies, they actually had the word OMAD in them. Mm-hmm. Now, both these studies were using a 20-hour fasting window and a 4-hour eating window, which
right.
In our way of thinking, I don't think that's OMAD, but that's what they want to call it, so that's what we're calling it. So the first study, they did find that during the OMAD period of the research, that the subjects did lose more fat mass than when they were doing these 3 meals a day, which was what they were testing it against. The second study was a little bit more interesting, that they looked at glucose metabolism. And both these studies went for 8 weeks, mm-hmm. so 2 months' time. What they found in the second one was that these subjects had higher fasting glucose levels and a higher oral glucose tolerance test kind of timed peak. And what the research kind of surmised with that was that because they were eating so much at that meal late in the day, mm-hmm. that it was actually carrying over, and they were still processing some of that food that they had eaten the night before.
Right. So really, the only research that we were able to find on OMAD was very scattered. So yes, it showed that there was increased fat loss, but the metabolic markers like blood glucose and cholesterol even were not real favorable. However, those were 2007, 2 studies, small studies. There's not a whole lot we can glean from that. What we do know is that there is an awful lot of research out there supporting the health benefits and weight loss benefits of intermittent fasting. So we're kind of at a place, right, where can we surmise that this intermittent fasting, if you're doing 16/8 and it's got these benefits, well, would going even a little bit farther and fasting for 23 hours, would that be better?
Right. And both these studies, we should also point out, because we're talking to kind of more of a low-carb keto audience, these were 50% carb meals, that these people were eating. And that can I would think that would certainly, influence both glucose,
sure,
and cholesterol. And I mean, I know, as far as, pulse rate and things, if I'm eating carbs, my pulse rate's going up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And so that kind of brings us into can you eat anything that you want in this 1 hour eating window?
Well, I mean, you want to eat good food, right? But if you're going to just wait all day and then go, order a pizza or get some burgers or some chips or whatever, just throw that stuff in your face, I don't think it's going to work for you.
No, I think that you have to be cognizant of what you're eating if you want to do this from a health standpoint. And I would add that a lot of the research on intermittent fasting mentions that you get added benefits when you don't eat late at night.
Right.
And so the timing of your 1 meal a day could matter.
It could matter. And in fact, I have actually tried different times kind of altering that during my day. I had the thought that, maybe having that 1 meal a day for breakfast, when, your metabolism is kind of getting going, you've got the whole rest of the day to mm-hmm. kind of burn that meal off, would be beneficial. Now, I didn't do it long enough to have any kind of results or testing from it. It still seems like it's probably a plausible theory. But, it could be that the timing, of these meals has a lot to do with how effective they are.
I do think that there's a lot of logic to eating earlier in the day. It's also very much more challenging because you're not socially able to eat at dinner time.
Right.
But there is evidence that our body follows that circadian clock. So we are more insulin sensitive, when we get our metabolism reared up early in the day. So that would bode for eating your
Right.
meal earlier. That kind of also parlays into, do calories matter?
Yeah, so calories do matter. I mean, we've talked about this, weight loss, calories versus hormones. We know that hormones play a huge issue, but, you can't discount calories. I mean, you can't eat 10,000 calories and think that you're not going to gain weight. I don't care what you're eating.
Yeah, depending on, if you'd have to be very, very active individual.
You'd have to be, a
Right.
Tour de France rider or
Right,
something.
right. So they'll get away with that.
Right.
But to be able to get enough calories, you could drive through McDonald's drive-through and you could fill up pretty easily on your daily need for calories. If you are instead eating whole foods that are unprocessed, it would be challenging to get your full daily nutrient requirements in that 1 hour. And then I would also say that we can go the opposite direction on calories. You could get too few. So if you're thinking of using OMAD on a daily basis and you're eating whole foods, unprocessed, which would just naturally keep your calories fairly low, well, there is evidence that daily calorie restriction will lower your metabolism. So that is something to watch. And you don't do OMAD twice in a row.
Right. So when I'm doing an OMAD and I'm doing that meal, I really don't overly try to get all the calories I need for the day in. I just eat till I'm satisfied. And that typically means that's going to be a lower calorie day for me. And because of that, I do not do 2 of these OMAD days in a row. Mm-hmm. We've talked about what I've kind of put together a thing for myself. It's calorie cycling from low calories to high calories to medium calories so that I don't get that adaptation, in my metabolism.
And just the last point that I had brought up in the introduction was about carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And you kind of touched on this when you were talking about the studies. So do carbohydrates matter when you're on OMAD?
Yeah, well, look, for me they do. It doesn't matter if I'm doing OMAD or whatever. A carb is just going to kill my progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say from an ease standpoint, definitely easier to fast for longer periods when you are eating a low-carb diet, just because you have the satiety of the fats and you don't have the violent blood sugar swings that drop you down and make you very hungry. Right. So bottom line on OMAD, is it safe? Well, there's not a whole lot of research out there to really be able to determine that. There is an awful lot of anecdotal evidence out there of people claiming that they feel great and they're losing weight. And I would say that occasional OMAD with high quality foods for a healthy individual should be fine. But here's the rub. If you're going to undertake OMAD and you're going to do it on a regular basis, the smart way to do it is to get your blood work done before embarking on it, and then even just a month after, to make sure that the markers like your fasting blood glucose, cholesterol, blood sugar, fasting insulin, those types of things are going in the direction that you want. I think that is the way to handle it in a safe
That's a smart way.
All right, so I hope that is helpful to you. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you know the next time that our video comes out. Till then, have a great week.